Still on the CISM series that I'm doing. I'm starting now with the Domain 3, which is Information Security Program Development and Management. In the class today, I'm going to talk about Information Security Program Overview, Information Security Program Resources, Information Asset Identification and Classification, Industry Standards and Frameworks for Information Security, Information Security Policies, Procedures and Guidelines, defining an information security program roadmap, information security program metrics, information security control design and selection, information security control implementation and integration, information security control testing and evaluation, information security awareness and training, integration of the security program with IT operations, management of external services and relationships, and conclude with information security program communications and reporting. Starting from information security program development, when you hear information security program, what comes to mind? An information security program encompasses all the activities and resources that collectively provide information security services to an enterprise. So it could include design, development, and integration of enterprise-wide controls related to information security, along with the ongoing administration and management of these controls. Take, for example, an organization wants to comply to the ISO 27001 2022 version of the standard. They can have this as an information security program. The standard comprises of clause 4 to 10 and then 93 security controls. So what the organization can do is that they can have a set of program starting from planning to achieve compliance to this standard. And then they move from that to conducting a gap assessment to identify their current state. They move from that to looking at where the gaps are and what are the things they need to do to remediate and fix these gaps. They move from that step and then they go through the internal audit process, after which they conduct a management review and have an external audit that will lead to certification. Eventually, what they would be able to achieve is to manage the entire activities by way of having an information security program in place. For an organization to be able to achieve things like this, they need to have clear goals and roadmap. What is it that we want to achieve in the next 3 to 5 years, for example? What are our goals, our security goals? What are the resources that we need to be able to achieve these goals? Example of resources can include human resource, financial resource, and of course, technological resource. Talking about an overview of information security program, what are the key things that you need to know? One, especially for the purpose of the exam, and then two, for the purpose of your knowledge. The first is information security management trends. In an increasing number of enterprises, the information security manager would always be a member of senior leadership. Very important. It could be, it depends on the role, but what is critical, what is crucial is the person represented as a chief information security officer, or a vice president, or what the job title is, the person who has the overall accountability for information security within the organization. And then that can now cascade down to the tactical level. So I'll take it in 3 bits. One is strategic. In strategic sense, the person must have the overall accountability for information security. The person can be a CISO, a vice president of information security, and so on. Cascading it down to tactical, the person can be an information security manager who would be responsible for driving the day-to-day activities of information security and ensuring that security posture is improved within the organization and the organization can uphold a right security culture. This is very important to be able to improve security within the organization. What are the essential elements of an information security program? First thing is that the program must demonstrate execution of a well-developed information security strategy that is aligned to the business. Whenever I have an opportunity to teach information security, I always like to say that information security or cyber security is an enabler of the business. So whatever it takes, there must be an alignment of information security with the business. So when the business is setting objectives, information security objectives must also be set in alignment with what the business has agreed to achieve. So for example, organization has said that one of our key objectives is customer satisfaction. From information security perspective, what are the things that we can do to ensure that the business is able to satisfy their customers? Is it by ensuring that incidents are reduced or risks are reduced to acceptable levels? Ensuring that customers understand information security and their accounts are not breached, or whatever service it is we are running is protected and customers are happy. So information security has to be practical and in alignment with the business. Very important. Second thing I'll talk about is the program must be well designed with cooperation and support from management and stakeholders. Management buy-in is crucial. If you are watching this video and you represent management in your organization, please note that for a successful information security program, there must be buy-in and commitment from the management. This is key and very important. The third thing I'll talk about is effective metrics must be developed for program design and implementation. What are the KPIs? KPI means key performance indicators. How are we ensuring that everything that we have set to achieve in terms of information security program, we are keeping to it and we are planning to achieve it? Why is information security program important in an organization? You see, if information security program management as an ongoing requirement that serves to protect information assets. For example, I always say that why do organizations strive to align to best practice standards and frameworks? Yes, there's a compliance part of it, especially for regulatory obligations. But outside of that, the protection of information assets has become critical in our day-to-day operations. We are in business because we want to uphold the security goals, which is confidentiality, integrity, and availability. We're in business because we want to protect information assets. And that is one key importance of an information security program. A well-executed security program is one that is effectively designed, implemented, managed, and monitored. So it means that when you're executing an information security program, it has to go through a step-by-step process. No, don't stop at designing the program. Make sure that you are implementing. And when you go through the phase of implementation, continue to manage and monitor. Just like when I teach or talk about risk, I say that when you recommend controls, you implement the controls. Don't stop at implementation. The monitoring part of security is something that a lot of people forget about quickly, but ensure that that monitoring part is always included in the process. Very important. I'll talk about applying the security program business case. It's very important to create a business case for a security program. Why do we need to achieve this? For example, your organization wants to achieve compliance to best practice. Has there been a business case? What's the cost benefit analysis? If we do this, how does it change the way we do business? How does it change what we do within the organization? What is the benefit to us? What is the impact to our employees? All of these things is very important when considering a security program. We have a security program. We have created a roadmap for the next 5 years when it comes to security. Yes, that's perfect. But what is the justification for everything that we have included in this roadmap? Have we created a justification to it, or is it just a nice to have roadmap because our competitors are also having roadmaps? So let's just do the same thing. So it is very important to be clear. Why do we want to do this? And also have risks at the back of our mind. What are the outcomes of information security program management? We talk about strategic alignment. I've said that already. Aligning business to information security is critical. You can't do information security without thinking about the business. Cybersecurity and, of course, information security is an enabler of the business. Managing our risk, ensuring that we manage risk within the organization is a good outcome of information security. And while managing risk, thinking about reducing risk to acceptable levels. What are the assets? So two ways, two approaches. If you want to manage risk from an asset perspective, go through the entire process. Information assets, what are the assets? What are the threats and vulnerabilities? Do we have existing controls in place? And then what is the risk based on likelihood and impact? And when you do that, if the risk is above acceptable levels, say for example, it is high or critical, do we need to bring in other controls to mitigate the risk? And then do we need to report the risk, monitor, and so on and so forth? If the risk is within acceptable levels, then do we just go ahead and accept it as a low risk and continually monitor? And maybe by another year, we conduct another risk assessment. Very important for information security program. Next one I'll talk about is value delivery. Value delivery requires information security to deliver the required level of security effectively and efficiently. So it's not just a case of we want to do this in our organization. Okay, fine, let's do it. What is the value to us as an organization? People need to begin to see information security as something that brings value to the organization. For example, in some of these meetings, when we are reporting, if the organization has gone one full year without losing money to cyber attack, you can show the value, the benefit to the organization. We've been able to uphold security standards by having different controls in place from a preventive standpoint, detective standpoint, and also corrective. So very important. Resource management. I've talked about resource. I said managing information security program requires people, technology, and processes. So you require human resource, you require technology, you require financial resource, because sometimes to have the right people, you need to have the budget and money in place. And this would also help with information security programs. Performance measurement. Measure. I always like to say that when you create information security controls, when you implement these controls, measure, are these controls effective? What are the key performance indicators we want to set? For example, in one full year, you can say that we are managing incidents, and the key performance indicators is that we should not have this number of incidents in one calendar year or one financial year within the organization. Or even if we have this number of incidents, the impact should not be major to us. That can be a key performance integration. And the last one I'll talk about is assurance process integration. It is important for the information security manager to be aware of and understand all organizational assurance functions because of their significance to information security. So having relationship with other assurance providers is critical. What are the things we need to achieve within our organization? Who are the people where do we need that support from? And how do we have a process in place to ensure that we are keeping track of all those things that we need to achieve or comply to? So I'll go quickly and talk about scope and charter of an information security program. I'll just start quickly by talking about information security program objectives. The objectives have to be clear. What do we want to achieve? What do we need to achieve what we want to achieve? Have a high-level strategy. We want to have an information security program. Like I said, I talked about roadmap, high-level strategy. And then you turn this strategy into projects and initiatives. So high-level strategy, in the next 3 to 5 years, the organization should have been compliant to NIST cybersecurity framework, ISO 27001 standard, GDPR. In addition to this, they should have some technology in place and also begin to consider things around artificial intelligence initiatives. What are the things we need to consider in terms of the use of AI within our organization? So bring all of these strategies, these things that you've documented in the strategy, bring them into activities and projects. Remember, we're talking about information security program. We are breaking it down. And that way, once the objectives are defined, it must have clear timelines. It must be measurable, and the timelines must be clear. Can break the objectives down into metric, key performance indicators, and that way have clear timelines with the objectives so that you're able to manage it effectively. So I'll go quickly to information security program concepts. As the program is created, we need to understand the purpose. Why did we create this information security program? Is it to implement our security strategy and achieve the defined outcomes? We want to reduce risks, just like I've said, to acceptable levels. We want to ensure that we're able to manage our security posture. We want to ensure that we're able to improve our security culture within the organization. So this has to be clear, and everyone needs to understand their role in achieving this. What are the common challenges that are faced when it comes to information security program? Management support, like I said, obtain management commitment. Cybersecurity or information security requires management commitment, management support, tone. There must be a tone at the top. Set the tone from the top. Management has to set that tone. If you are cruising without management support, it's going to become a big challenge. Everything you've documented in terms of 3 to 5 year plan may not be achievable because management they are busy with other things and they're not giving their full support for this. Another common challenge is funding. Common information security program challenge. Funding. You set very nice plans, goals, activities, projects, strategy. No money to achieve it. Because in some cases, information security requires money. So funding can be a big challenge. So as the information security manager, you are letting the business know that to be able to achieve these things, we need to set fund aside for it, which is very critical. And the third one I'll talk about is staffing. Skills, the required skills is important. If you don't have the staff strength to manage all the nice things that you've put there, the fine prints, if there's management support, there's funding, but the skill set is not there, then there's no information security program. So you can't have one and not have the other. So it's not a case of choose. It's a case of have this in place to be able to achieve the desired goal and the desired outcome when it comes to information security. So I'll talk quickly about common information security program constraints. The first one I'll talk about is physical. Because of time, I'm just going to breeze through this part quickly. So the first one I'll talk about is physical. One of the things I'll talk about in terms of physical could be the physical space could affect the organization achieving what their desired result in terms of information security program. Physical requirements must be put into consideration. What are the things that we need when it comes to physical requirements? The strategy, whatever strategy it is that is being developed, must also consider personnel and resource safety. Very important when it comes to information security program. Other ones here include ethics, culture, organizational structure, cost, personnel, resources, capabilities, time, and technology. I've already touched on some of this, especially when I was talking about having the right skills in place, ensuring that funding is available, having the right resources, technology, and so on and so forth. The next section of what I'm going to talk about is on information assets identification and classification. I am a strong believer of classify your information assets. Information assets must be identified and classified. If you don't know the assets you have, how do you protect it? You can't protect what you don't know. I believe in that so much. Let's take, for example, in our personal lives, if you have two phones and you're only aware in your mind, for example, you think it's only one phone you have, there's a possibility that the second phone will be lost and you would not know because you can't even remember that you have a second phone. Information assets. You must know the assets that exist in your entire estate in an organization. That is the first step. Classify the asset. What's the value? Is this asset business critical to us or not? What's the value of the assets? Is this asset important to us or not? By the time you determine the importance of the asset, then you can move to the next step. Okay, because this asset is important, it is valuable, then we need to conduct a risk assessment. We need to conduct a vulnerability assessment. We need to understand the weaknesses that exist in this asset. You can only do that if you have classified accordingly and you know the value of the assets within the organization. So this is very important. Classify. You work in an organization, you are the information security officer. They don't have an asset inventory. You have to speak out. The organization must maintain an asset inventory, and the asset inventory should be in different categories. What are the type of assets that exist within the organization? And is everything captured up until the suppliers also? Some organizations, they don't even know the suppliers they have in their environment. They just know that they have suppliers. They don't know. You cannot protect what you don't know. So information asset identification and classification is very important. Okay, so I'll go quickly now to the next slide. Industry standards and frameworks for information security. I'm a strong believer of alignment. Organizations must align to best practice standards and framework. It is very important to manage information security. Understand the architecture that exists within your environment. How does it fit into one another? Because at the end of the day, you want to ensure that proper controls are implemented and integrated throughout enterprise infrastructure, processes, and technologies. So not even having an idea of what the infrastructure looks like is already a gap on its own. So with information security program, you need to understand the bits and bits. What are the things that comprises of everything we need to achieve when it comes to information security? And don't forget, while doing this also, there has to be alignment between business and security. Business cannot be asking for A and information security is providing B. As business is asking for A, information security is also providing A. So everything that is happening in this phase, you have to ensure traceability back to business strategy, specific business requirements, and key principles. This is very important for information security. And by doing this, there has to be consideration of best practice standards and frameworks. Organizations use or adopt best practice standards and frameworks based on different factors. It could be because they want to comply based on compliance requirements, or nice to have, or because they want to boost their reputation, or because they are chasing some particular contracts and is a requirement, or they want to promote customer confidence or reduce risks to acceptable levels. So when considering all of this, organizations need to understand what is the reason why we want to achieve this and which of the standards or framework are we looking to achieve. The common one, ISO 27001, internationally accepted in any country, set of controls, 93 controls, and these controls cut across preventive, detective, and corrective controls and support organizations to achieve compliance to best practice. When achieving compliance to best practice, there are different components. What are the different components? Technical requirements. What are the technical components that we need to have in place? Operational requirements. What do we have in place when it comes to operational components? To ensure that we continue to manage our activities so that we can provide a level of security assurance. Management components. Are we taking some of the things that we are doing back to management? Is management reviewing what we are doing? Is there a tone at the top? Administrative components. What do we have in place? How are they managing these things from administrative perspective? How do we ensure that other administrative team like the finance team, HR, and other functions are effective and part of this? And of course, educational and informational components, bringing employees into this, involving employees. Employee education and awareness regarding security is critical. Don't just assume, oh, no, my employees, they know it. No assumption, ensuring that they are up to date when it comes to security. Next one I'll talk about quickly is information security policies, procedures, and guidelines. Policies. Policies are high-level statements of management intent, expectations, and direction. Somebody comes to your house, you say, please remove your shoe. The person questions, you say, that is our policy in our house. Before you come into the lounge, you have to remove your shoe. No questions. Policy. High level. Organizations set policy and they expect that their employees should adhere to the policies. This is very important to drive information security programs in organization. So as information security manager, you have to ensure that the policy is clearly aligned with the strategic objectives of the organization. What is the direction of the organization? And the policy has to align with the business requirements. Very important. So you don't create policies in isolation of the business. Policies need to align to the direction of the business. The person said, remove your shoe because in the streets, there's always mud on the road. So because there's always mud on the road, the person does not want you to come into the house and stay in the house. The direction is aligning with what is happening in that environment, the direction. Standards. What are the standards in place? Even within the organization, you set standards, even with the policies that has been developed. For example, you have password standard. This is our baseline. This is what we want in our organization when it comes to passwords. It is very important and crucial for information security. What's the standard for access control within the organization's environment? The organization must create standards to be able to meet policy requirements. And that's the work of the information security manager to ensure that these things are supporting the information security program. And then you move to procedures. Procedures are important for operational workflow. It is very important. They must be clear and unambiguous. And the terms in the procedure must be exact. Why is this important? So that if an employee is not available, for example, there is a procedure in place. Another employee can pick it up and still complete that task, and it helps to support the processes in question. So step by step, the procedure needs to be clear. Nothing ambiguous, nothing complicated, nothing complex. Clear. And there has to be guidelines in place for executing the procedures. These are the guidelines. These are the things you need to do to achieve your backup within this certain period. These are the things that you need to do. Clear guidelines, and all of these supports information security program in an organization. Okay. The next one I'll quickly talk about is defining an information security program roadmap. I think I've talked about this already. I'll just touch on it again a little. I've talked about simplicity and clarity. Very important. Business focus beyond the technical domain. Strategic alignment, aligning with the business. Business cannot be going in A and security is going in B. It is very, very important. Architecture and control objectives. When considering security control objectives, a system architect can use combination of technologies to provide control points in a system's infrastructure. What do we want to achieve within the system? What are the control objectives that we have set? And what are the things we need to do to ensure that we achieve this? Implementing the architecture. What do we have in place to ensure that we implement this architecture that we have established? Managing the security program, ensuring thorough and complete administration of the security program is important. How do you ensure this? By directing, overseeing, and monitoring the activities related to information security. I've said this already and I'm emphasizing it again. Security program management is hands-on. There has to be someone who is directing all the activities, who is managing it. For example, as a security consultant, when I go to organizations and we want to support them to achieve compliance to best practice, one of the things I mention is that there has to be someone who is directing and overseeing security within the organization. How do you start? You can start with a gap assessment. To develop an information security program, start with a gap assessment. What is the current state? It's just like when someone is unwell and they go to the hospital. When you go to the hospital, the doctor would not say, take paracetamol without checking what is wrong with you. They have to do a diagnosis. They have to do a gap assessment. What is your current state? So when they do a current state assessment and they realize that, okay, the recommended control is for you to take paracetamol to be better, or maybe to get a drip to stay hydrated or something, that is the next step for them. And that's the same thing with security. Gap assessments. And when that is done, you're able to say, okay, this is the roadmap. Based on the gap assessment we've done, this is the direction. This is what we need to be looking at. This is where we need to be looking at. This is very important for information security roadmap. Now, go quickly to the next slide. Information security program metrics. You have to define metrics. Critical. Define metrics. What is metric? It's defined as a quantifiable entity that allows measurement of the achievement of a process goal. You have to measure. Is this effective or not? Measurement has to be in place. Why? Because it helps to determine this control that you've put in place. Is it how effective it is? You are checking the effectiveness. So by doing that, we are setting key performance indicators. You can define metrics at different levels. At governance, at strategic, risk management, value, resource management, and all of that. Ensuring that metrics are set. For example, you can say that within the organization, we want risks to be reduced to this point, especially for business critical assets. And then after a period of time, you measure the risks that we have. Have we reduced it to this point for business critical assets? Is this effective? This approach we've taken, is it effective? And then you continue to monitor. I talked about security program monitoring already. You continue to ensure that you are monitoring. How effective is the things that we have put in place? And you can also monitor from different levels. After you've tailored your metrics to the needs from strategic, operational, tactical, you can also monitor at those levels. This is very important for the effectiveness of an information security program. So I'll go quickly to information security program management. What are the things to consider when you're talking about it? Starting by information security control design and selection. What are the considerations? First of all, let's start with controls. When you hear controls, what comes to mind? These are the means of managing risk. You establish controls because you want to improve security. You want to manage risk effectively, reduce risk. Controls are implemented to achieve particular objectives, and they work together to enable the stakeholder through goals through this strategic program plan. Establish controls, establish security controls in the organization. Example, you work in an organization as the information security officer. You find that ever since you've joined the company, the only kind of awareness that they do is for new joiners. Poor security awareness, that's the weakness, vulnerability. Now you establish a control. Now the control you've established is an awareness program such that different type of awareness is done at different levels. Phishing simulation, virtual awareness sessions, screensavers, banners, posters, and so on. You implement the controls and you begin to test the effectiveness of the control and measure it. Your control objectives should be aligned to organizational objectives. Eventually, you'll be able to manage risks through controls. When we do a risk assessment, for example, and we find that a risk is high, what we do is we manage the risk using security controls. So just like I've given an example now, poor security awareness, there's a risk in that because a day may come when an employee that is not trained will share password. And then they say, sorry, I didn't know I'm not supposed to share password. I wasn't feeling well. And I thought I can just give my colleague my password to log into that application for me. Shared password. But you implement the control to manage risk. So you are managing risks through controls. Very important for information security. Different type of controls exist. Understanding which control to address what risk is important. But again, best practice standards and frameworks, there are loads and loads of security controls that can be adopted using best practice standards and frameworks. Also understanding different methods of controls and how it fits into an organization is critical. So you don't just, as a security officer or manager, you need to understand what control is important to address a gap or a risk within the organization. Establish preventive controls. Preventive controls would help to prevent potential risk by addressing the risks directly. Establish detective controls. They warn of violations or attempted violations of security policy. This can include audit trails, intrusion detection, and so on and so forth, alarms, CCTV, and things like that. And then corrective controls will remediate impact. For example, you have backup and restore procedures as a corrective measure, incident response as a corrective measure. And in some cases, introducing compensating controls is also important. Maybe the control you're supposed to implement cannot be implemented for some factors. Bringing in a compensating control to address the risk can also help reduce and manage the risk effectively. Okay, so information security control integration and implementation. If there are cases where controls can be automated, that's also fine. Baseline controls. Having defined baseline security controls should be a standing requirement for all new systems development. What are the baseline security requirements that should be in place? This would also help in terms of control effectiveness. Helps to address risk, helps to manage risks to acceptable levels, and also helps to improve security posture and culture. Okay, control testing and evaluation. Test security controls. I'm an advocate of testing controls. You have recommended controls. The controls have been implemented. The next step is to evaluate the extent to which they achieve their intended purpose. The controls should be tested and evaluated. What is the strength of the control? Measuring the strength of the control is important, and continuous testing and monitoring. The strength can be measured in terms of the likelihood of its effectiveness. Take it back to risk. So if you carry out another risk assessment after that control has been implemented, you can test the effectiveness. If the implementation of the control has brought down the risk, then you can get to that point to say that this control has good strength. So this is very important. So it's not just a case of we have implemented controls. Yes, we are fine. Controls are implemented. It's also a case of, are the controls effective? Did the control address the risk in question? What can we say in terms of the organizational culture based on this control? What can we say in terms of adherence to policies and so on and so forth? Information security awareness and training. I've talked about this already in the example I gave, but I'll just mention again. Organizations have to develop an information security awareness program. A large percentage of security incidents are caused by human errors, either through a lack of understanding of expected behavior or through accidental mistakes. Human weaknesses. Somebody is under pressure at work. They are dealing with too many things, too many documents and files. They just want to do their work and go home. And then an email comes in. Dear Ireti, could you please attend to this attached urgently because we need to do end of day, something like that. And then without thinking twice, Ireti downloads the attachment. And because there are lack of security mechanisms in place, Ireti has introduced malware into the organization's network. Develop an information security awareness program. Continuous security awareness training and education is important. Sometimes targeted role-based training. People in finance, you can target the awareness. The type of awareness that you want to give people in finance may be different from people in operations, may be different from people in sales and IT. Give role-based training, specific training for different roles. And then again, metrics, measure. This awareness we are doing, is it effective? Are you also conducting awareness at the management level? Some organizations would say, no, we have trained employees, we are fine. How about the management? You have forgotten about them. Don't forget that there are some targeted attacks towards the management of organizations. Very important. Awareness programs must be robust. All right. So moving on from that quickly, integration of security program with IT operations. Remember to integrate security program with IT operations. Who are the people that we have? Do we have adequate resources? What are their skill sets and the culture within the organization? The information security manager must ensure that personnel within the security organization and other responsible organizations maintain the appropriate skills needed to carry out program functions. Are they skilled? Do they have the skills required to carry out the functions that they need to do? So this is very important when you're talking about information security program. Information security licensing responsibilities, different things to note here. But most important thing is ensuring that when integrating information security with IT operations, there are different parts of the business. What are their responsibilities? The person in HR, what is expected of them? Person in procurement, compliance, and so on. I have a suggestion, and I always say this: appoint champions within operational teams. Make those champions responsible for information security within their teams and let them cascade it down to other team members. It is very important when we are talking about information security. One thing to note, information security is not just an IT function. I've gone to companies and they say, no, it's just IT. We are not in IT. It's not our business. Who said so? Information security is everybody's responsibility, and that is why it is important to have champions within organization. Cross-organizational responsibilities. The information security manager is directly responsible for many critical aspects of the information security program. Yes, the InfoSec manager has a lot of role to play when it comes to information security. But having said that, operational teams must also understand that they have a role to play. There's one favorite thing I always say: information security is incomplete without you. It is incomplete without you, meaning that it's not a case of, oh, okay, because it is InfoSec manager, let the person carry the entire responsibility in the organization. That's false. Everybody must be involved in information security. Issue resolution through the information security program. Understanding how to manage problem when it comes to information security programs is critical. There should be a reporting process for tracking the results and ensuring that the problem is resolved. When a problem is reported within the information security program, there has to be a reporting mechanism in place. The information security manager should also be familiar with mitigating controls that may have been employed if the primary control fails. Very important when it comes to information security program. Understanding that different people may have different issues as the program is being implemented across the organization, and being able to manage it and address it properly is very critical. Integrating information security with IT processes. Software development lifecycle, information security must be there from start to finish. Very important. Change management process, configuration management, and so on and so forth. Integrate information security, and that is again why I like the ISO standard. It has found a way to integrate information security into key IT processes, ensuring that security is considered. So I go to an organization, ISO standard, secure coding. Software developers, have you gone through secure coding training? Because it's not just a case of you coding, but a case of integrating and incorporating security into that process that you are doing, which is very important. And the last thing with that is cloud computing. We are in the age of cloud now. Understanding and evaluating your cloud service providers is critical. Depending on the criticality of the services provided, the way the organization selects their vendor, it should be in line with their risk appetite. So the organization must be able to do a thorough evaluation of their potential service providers based on their security posture and risk appetite. Again, we're in the age of cloud, so it's something to always put into consideration. Overall, what I'm trying to say is that security program must be incorporated into IT operations and processes. Okay. Management of external services and relationships. Governance of third-party relationships. Who are your service providers? Do you know the service providers you have within your organization? Third party, their relationship with your organization. The information security manager must ensure that the organization has appropriate controls and processes in place to facilitate outsourcing. Yeah, you want to outsource, that's fine. But do you have the processes in place? Do you have the controls in place? In the contract that you've established, are there risk management clauses? Is it just clause? The risk management clauses must be there, and not just there, also implemented, ensuring that a risk assessment is performed. Ensure that due diligence is performed prior to contract signature. As InfoSec manager, don't say, no, we don't need to do due diligence. No, they are fine. Do all of that and follow the best practice in terms of managing your external services and relationship. Third-party access. What type of access does a third-party organization have within your environment? Who are the providers? Do you understand them? Do you have an inventory of your providers? Have you established contracts? Do you have service level agreements with your third service providers? All of these things are things that are very important to consider when it comes to looking for a third party and outsourcing them. There are some challenges. Maybe the third-party organization does not even have the essential skills. Maybe they're not right, or they're not the right fit for the project or the opportunity. Maybe in the contract, you have not explicitly stated key things like breach disclosure, incident management, and so on and so forth. So look into all of those things to manage the external services and relationships. Okay. So next one I'll talk about quickly is information security program communication and reporting. It is very important to communicate and report when it comes to information security program. Evaluate the program management. How effective is this thing? What are the objectives that we set from the start? Did we achieve the objectives that we set? Did we develop an information security strategy and roadmap? Like I said from the start, develop a strategy, turn it to activities, roadmap, put timelines. Because when you're talking about a program, there must be a high-level direction. What do we want to achieve? Did we set a criteria for acceptable risk? What is the risk that we can accept? The program goals that we set, are they aligned with objectives, with our governance objectives? Have we put some of these activities into initiatives? Have we implemented metrics to measure the success and the shortfalls? So these are some of the things that we have to think about when we are talking about program management evaluation. So it is very, very important to ensure that information security program is communicated and reported. So are we going back to the business? This is what we've done. This is what we are trying to achieve. This is where we are currently. And these are the things we still need to do. So this is very essential when we're talking about information security program. Security reviews and audits. Audits must have objectives, scope, and results. What are the audit results? Eventually, when the audit is completed, did we achieve the objective that we set or not? That is why I mentioned that in an information security program, you have to start from a high level strategy, have your roadmap, your initiatives, your timelines, so that when an audit is being done, the auditor can check and evaluate. What did we say we are going to achieve? Where's the evidence? What have we done so far? Are there gaps? The information security manager should have good working relationship with the auditor, whether the auditor is internal or external. I always like to say that audit should be seen from a process improvement angle, not an angle of, oh, we want to catch what they are doing wrong. We want to nail them. That's not the mindset of an auditor. The mindset of an auditor is most likely, what can we do to improve the process within the organization? The information security manager should enforce compliance during the program development. It is very important. Compliance should be enforced with security policy standards and procedures. Policies are not fashion documents. Just like I said, somebody comes into your house, remove your shoe. Enforce it, enforce compliance. It's the same thing with policies. Enforce compliance with policies. Acceptable use policy. This is what is acceptable within our organization. This is what is prohibited. It has to be enforced. Some companies, they will say that within work hours, you cannot access this kind of websites, maybe social media websites, and they enforce it. Policy compliance. So information security manager should work with the required team to ensure that these things are enforced in terms of compliance and monitored for effectiveness. Okay, different approaches for monitoring. It is important for the security manager to develop a consistent, reliable method to determine the overall ongoing effectiveness of the program. The security manager must be able to ensure that the information security program is effective. Otherwise, it is a waste of time. One way to do that is to regularly conduct risk assessments and track improvements over time. How are we doing? The goals that we set, have we achieved it? How can we improve? Do you need to conduct a risk assessment? Another way is by using tools, maybe to conduct vulnerability assessment and so on information security assets. So this is very important. And again, I've talked about measuring. I don't want to overflog measuring, but measuring effectiveness is critical. It is important to measure the effectiveness. Everything that we have set to achieve, is it effective? Are we able to achieve it? So measurement is very important. And this is where I will stop today. I'm going to take some quiz questions like I normally do. So join me as we look at the questions together and the answers. Okay, first one. Which of the following is the best metric for evaluating the effectiveness of security awareness training? Is it the number of password resets, the number of reported incidents, incident resolved, access rule violations? The answer to this question is definitely not password resets, because how do you measure if you say effectiveness of security awareness training? Password reset does not tell you that the security awareness training is effective, but it is reported incidents, because it means that you've told the employees that, yes, guys, we need you to report incidents. Employees have taken that into consideration and they have started reporting incidents. So you can then say that, yes, this security awareness training that we did is effective. So the answer to this question is reported incidents. I'll go quickly to the next question. Security monitoring mechanisms should primarily A, B, C, D. The answer is A. It should focus on business critical information. Remember, I said when I was talking about information assets, I said that classify your assets. Which assets has business critical information? And when you begin to monitor, that should be the focus. It should be on business critical information because that is what can impact the organization negatively. All right. When contracting with an outsourcer to provide security administration, the most important contractual element is this is service level agreement. Every other thing here can be covered in service level agreements. So the most important thing is to have a service level agreement. And with this, the outsourcing firm or the third party organization can be held accountable. And you can say, okay, is this covered in the service level agreement? Have they met the requirements based on that? And you can, of course, use the service level agreement to evaluate their performance over time. So next question, which of the following is most effective in preventing security weaknesses in operating systems? The answer to this is patch management. Patch management is a preventive control that it corrects discovered weaknesses by applying a patch to the original program code that eliminates the weakness, preventing exploitation. By applying a patch, it's fixing and then it addresses the weaknesses that exist in the operating systems. Okay, next one is, which of the following is most important for a successful information security program? The answer is obviously executive management commitment. Every other thing is important, but the question said most important. Remember, I said obtain management support. Remember, I said obtain management support. Get management buy-in. Get their commitment. That's the most important. If you do every other thing, if you have policies, you communicate, you have technology, you train people, and you don't get management support, it's a waste of your time. All right? Which of the following practices is best used to remove system access for contractors and other temporary users when it is no longer required? The question, always take note of what is in caps. It said best used. The answer is establish predetermined automatic expiration dates. Best used to remove access for contractors. If you have automatic expiration dates that's been set, is effective to remove their access. Otherwise, they are done with whatever they came to do in your environment. Everybody has forgotten and they still have the access. And that alone in itself is a risk. And takes me to my final question. Which of the following is the most effective solution for preventing internal users from modifying sensitive and classified information? The answer is role-based access control. It helps ensure that users have access only to files and systems appropriate for their job role. And this is a preventive control. Remember, the question said most effective solution for preventing internal users. Only give them what they need to have access to that is appropriate for their job role. So that way, if they are not supposed to have access to a sensitive or classified information, they won't have access to it because it is not in line with their job role. And this brings me to the end of today's class, Information Security Program Management. I hope you've been able to learn a thing or two. If you are currently planning to write the CISM exam, I'm really rooting for you. I wish you all the best. You can connect with me on my social media platforms, and thank you for watching. Bye.